Welcome to our continued coverage of the Economic Times Inspiring Business Leaders of India 2016. Previously, you saw the keynote speeches together with our conversations with the business leaders. And continuing with that, we now have with us the Joint Managing Director of Prince Pipes and Fittings, Mr. Parag Chheda. Parag Chheda is the Joint Managing Director of Prince Pipes and Fittings, one of the leading suppliers, manufacturers and exporters of pipes, plastic and PVC products in the country. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Sure.
An initial question for you. Prince Pipes and Fittings originally started as a small family business in the plastic household space. But then you entered the PVC market and everything changed. Walk us through that.
So Prince Plastics originally, as you rightly mentioned, we were into manufacturing of household items. I joined the business in the year of 1994. It's been more than 21 years now.
Sure. And
it's been a very exciting journey. When I joined the company's turnover was 13 crores of the PVC sector. And today we are 1100 crores plus.
That is phenomenal.
We have about more than 5,000 SKUs in our product portfolio.
It's quite a catalog.
Yes, and we have more than 2,500 dealers, distributors all across the country.
Your biggest challenge is quality control. You have a very evolved customer who's ultra sophisticated and sensitive when it comes to the quality quotient. So how do you maintain the balance between high maximum manufacturing output and yet not sacrificing on quality?
Right. So Prince Piping Systems, we've been into this piping industry for more than 3 decades now. And we are catering to the agriculture, the plumbing and the drainage sector. We put a lot of emphasis on preventing defects right from the planning stage, be it for the new product, be it for the process. And I believe that this is the surest way to have the right quality the very first time.
Let's talk about sustainability for a moment. Going green, how viable is that for your business?
Talking about the green plumbing, it includes reducing water wastages, water leakages,
Sure.
recycling water, and also optimizing the resources, the sustainable resources. And these have been on the top priority list of Prince Pipes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chheda, for those lovely insights. Learned a lot, and we wish you continued success.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And now we bring you a panel discussion between some of India's brightest business leaders who shared their personal insights on what it takes to not simply become a business leader, but to ultimately become the face of a brand. The panelists are A. Vaidesh, Vice President, South Asia and Managing Director, GlaxoSmithKline India. Ameera Shah, Managing Director and CEO, Metropolis Healthcare. Gautam Doshi, Group Managing Director, Reliance ADAG. Siddharth Roy Kapoor, Managing Director, Disney India. And Niranjan Hiranandani, Managing Director, Hiranandani Group. The panel discussion was moderated by Alok Kejriwal, co-founder and CEO, Games to Win.
We're talking about leadership, and the whole context is styles, attitude. There's also a part of this which is the face of leadership, which you guys are. Digital entrepreneurs like myself are. And we never get out of that. But if I were to just kind of try and contain it, I was thinking in the car when coming, and of all of the things that came to my mind are very Hindu philosophical Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva came up, and I was just remembering the context. So basically, creator, preserver, and destroyer. And if I look at the leadership style, the gods have always been great leaders, right? We couldn't audit them because they did what they did. But if I were to just start that flow and say, look, with you, Niranjan, right? As an entrepreneur, before you became a leader, right? The leadership came later. What did you do? And more than the journey, was there a distinct style that you maintained that got you here? And if I put you in the context of a creative leadership, which is creating things from thin air, can you share with us some of those constant reverberating ideas that you never let go of?
I think the first thing is that you got to believe in what you really want to create. And I was born in Malabar Hill. I was brought up in Malabar Hill, and we had all the quality of life, the best buildings we had. My father was a medical doctor, a ENT surgeon. So he gave me a good quality life. So when we went to Andheri, we went to Versova and all these other places, we made great buildings. But I never was happy, because when I made a great building, I looked out and I looked at slums, I looked at rotten places around you, the roads were bad, the sewers were bad, there was no garden, nothing. So I really dreamt that if I make the next thing, even if it's little far away, didn't really matter, but it has to be better than Malabar Hill. So that was a dream that I had, and said, no, if I can make the next project that I make better than the quality of life that I have in Malabar Hill, that would be the objective. But no, you're right, I didn't think of exactly what that path would be. But I had some kind of a dream to think, yes, this is at least the minimum that we have to do. The rest of what is huge hard work, but that's another story.
Awesome. And Ameera, you know, you're in the same context. We know about your journey from media, but again, there was nothing compelling you to do this, right? I mean, it could have been one choice of many. If you were to share, was this, you know, imbibe leadership? Was this something that drove you insane? What made you a bloodsucker?
So, I think 2-3 things. You know, one, I'm quite patriotic about India. And I was studying in the US, and most of my friends were staying back in the US and decided to get jobs at top firms and corporates. And my thought, even when I was 20, was that, look, there are few of us in this country, less than 2%, who are privileged, educated, and have the platform to do things in life and make an impact. And if all of us are going to go to the US and live there and, you know, live that dream, then who makes the Indian dream? And really that was my calling to say, I'm going to come back to India, and whatever I do with my life, be it good, bad, ugly, there'll be an impact on my people. To me, that was really the driving factor that brought me back to India in 2001. And taking off from there, I mean, I'd worked in large companies, and I had worked in a dot-com startup with 5 people, which was a miserable failure. But that was really the time I realized that I like building something from the front. And even if it means it's not going to be the largest organization in the world, it'll be my organization, awesome. And it'll be molded the way that I feel best. And to me, really, those were the 2 driving factors.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll just quip in with mine. Niranjan knows my family for many years, 35, 40 years, from Malabar Hill. That's where my parents are. And they set me up in a socks factory. So for 8 years or 9 years in my life, I went and worked in my father's socks factory. And there's this very nice, bridge at Lal Bagh. And I still remember this day, which was the 9th year. And I said, Alok, what are you going to do today, man? And I said, we're going to make another whole load of socks today. So what drove me insane was what I call the really stuffy Marwadi family business, which drove me nuts. And I started again from zero, literally. Of course, I had a home and an office, but the .com bug bit me. And thankfully, we went through that horrible phase. But I think there the leadership was, do anything but join your family business. And that was really funny. So, we've got this nice creative ideas going, and I think these, Ameera and Niranjan, of course, have built some huge value. But I think on the other side, and sitting across again here, are people who've preserved. And, they're the owners, they carry the flags of very large responsibility. And Vedish, for example, GSK, I used to love passing by the Glaxo factory at Worli because it used to smell nice at one time. It doesn't smell nice anymore. I don't know what you guys have done with it. I think you sold it to some builders. but the point is, even though you have to have obviously leadership to be the MD or CEO of what you do, but more than that, the question is the leadership a format? Is it something that you have to follow? And this is a really honest question. Is it a template, or is it some kind of flexibility in the large flag that you carry?
First and foremost, I strongly believe that leadership is not equal to CEO to start with. So you can be a CEO, but still you don't have leadership. So through chance, you must have been in the position. But typically, if I, connecting to the point that you talked about, face of the brand, I'm just going back to my days when I first started my career almost 29, 30 years back with one of the brand that is being discussed today. In fact, that time Vittal Malya just passed away and Vijay Malya just took over. I was one of the brand manager for one of the leading brand. I actually launched, it's called McDowell Diplomat. I don't know whether you remember the brand. It's a green color bottle, right? Then I moved into healthcare. That's the time I felt, very interestingly, that's not glamorous at all. You go into hospital, meeting. People used to ask me, you're doing so well, why did you move into something from a glamorous, I was handling a brand, I was a consumer brand, P&G affiliate, then into, where I find that congruence of your personal value congruence, it's so important that goal congruence of your life goal has to have a congruence to what you do in your career. When that happens, automatically the leadership starts blossoming. You start doing the right stuff. You care for your consumers. You care for your, the entire chain of value that you are adding. So I somehow believe that we come to a conclusion that if you want to be a leader, successful leader, I think first you need to be in a place where you belong. You can't be in a place where you don't belong.
Coming back to the topic of just the largeness of some of the brands, when I started this .com business, all of us started and do start, some may not confess it today, but we start in the hope of selling. I was very fortunate that after about 9 years of very hard struggle, we got a call, and the call came from none other than Disney, and Disney bought my last venture. So Siddharth, which of course is the guy from Disney. That was the introduction for you, my friend, and a very fond introduction. Now we were talking in the speakers lounge on Disney, and my gosh, I mean, what a role to play. And you have multiple leadership personas. I was telling him that if you go to Disneyland, I think no one there, none of the kids know who invented this place, but it's Mickey who's the leader there, right? And we all know about Mr. Disney and Walt, and now we have people like yourself who are manning one of the largest, I think, growing businesses of Disney, if not today, tomorrow. So Siddharth, the question is, how do you assimilate that vast legacy of leadership that has been, pretty much heaped on you, and cull it to make it work, and yet be yourself?
So it's an interesting question, but to start with, if you let yourself think too much about that, then you're not going to be able to function. It is pretty interesting though when you go into the history of what Walt Disney did. He really embodied Mickey Mouse with the values that he had, himself.
Awesome.
So it was almost a representation of the values that he wanted the company to convey. He actually used to voice Mickey Mouse at that time as well. So it was pretty interesting where you had the owner come, the name behind the company, and the most recognizable brand in the company actually being alter egos of the same person.
Nice.
And I think that's the value he tried to drive all through, which is why even today, when you look at most studios and you say that it's a movie from XYZ studio, what really matters is the movie and not the studio that it comes from. I think what Disney was able to do is really create a value in the studio brand itself.
Awesome.
And then the movie becomes, secondary. So the fact that Frozen comes from Disney gives it a certain credibility, and then you come and watch Frozen and then you love it, versus the other way around. It's interesting what you mentioned about creative leadership, as well, because when it comes to creative organizations, I think the leadership style is crucial if you don't want to shut down any further creativity. You really need to be a creative catalyst in many ways. You need to be a listener. You need to be able to get people to be able to be the best version of themselves, be able to ideate to the best extent that they possibly can, because there really aren't any right or wrong answers. So if you clamp down and you're really decisive about you think you know exactly what you want, and you're basically asking people to execute on that, then you're going to be driven by the creative vision of one person versus utilizing the talents of the group.
Fantastic.
And I think as we make movies and television shows and we create consumer products, and I think increasingly you realize that if you start to position yourself in the traditional role of leader, you tend to get people to clamp down.
Got it.
You need to be participative and engaging and be able to get the best out of it.
Awesome. One of the things that startled me, Gautam, was US Fortune 500, 2015. The names of the list, the names of the companies, they all look like families. Obviously first was Walmart, and we had Berkshire Hathaway, which is one man, and then we had Ford, and there was definitely iTunes, Apple, and the list went on and on. Now, ADAG and where you come from, pretty much the same when we look at the India side. And within that, you have expressed leadership, but it's also part of a very, very large leadership kind of rollout, which you have to play within. So anything that, and obviously you had many years of wisdom piled up. So Gautam, just critical, leadership ideas and the family stroke, let's do anything that makes value structure.
Leadership in families is something which I have seen not only within ADAG, but across the board, because I have spent a greater part of my life being a professional, running a professional firm, advising. I learned from that my leadership style, if at all, in a professional firm, you're talking about a niche, and we learned from the role model, who was one of the best professionals in the country and who still is, yes. Bansi Mehta. So you learn from him, you learn a different style. You learn how to interact with people, but not really how to build institutions. You don't really want to go out and do that. And that's where, to some extent, one changed. Because times have changed. As professions change, professions are no longer being run as one-man shows. They are no longer being run as councils. That's something which is equally a business today, equally run as an institution, as used to be, as would be true of other businesses, and not true of professions. So we try to do that as a professional outside. The opportunity which you get in a group of this size, the type of problems, the type of issues you are dealing with is far bigger. And it's the same question, but if the stakes involved, I mean, if you are playing roulette and if you're betting 10 rupees and if you're betting 1,000, and then if you're betting 1 lakh, the thrill is altogether different. And that difference in thrill is the difference which really makes up for this.
So we talked about, the creative, we talked about the preservation, but I must talk about also the destruction or the transformation. So the question to each of you is, the not to do's of leadership, whether it's, being too larger than life, whether it's knowing when to let go, or just listening. So Amira, why don't you take a shot?
I think when you talked about creation, destruction, leadership, I think the one thing which plagues all mankind and womankind and enables us to create or destroy is actually ego.
Fantastic.
And it's the one human condition that overpowers our mind, our brains, our souls constantly, and the more fame and success and money we get, this only gets bigger and bigger. And I think the challenge for all of us and for all business people is how do you really separate the ego from what makes sense to do as leaders that affect all aspects of society and all stakeholders in the business, versus it being what's mine and what can I do more and what can I get more, and what am I doing for my status and what am I doing for my image and what am I doing to make myself look better. And I think that distinction is a very fine line that most of us struggle with. And the ones I think who manage to walk that well and separate genuine impact from image and the benefit of ego that comes from that, I think are the ones that go on to be true leaders. Not saying it's easy. I think it's very challenging to do. But I think as entrepreneurs, as leaders, one of the key things to look at is really our own self-awareness at different phases of our journeys. And I think if we become more self-aware about what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're doing, I think that self-awareness then percolates into our organizations and allows our organizations to become better or best versions of themselves or not. And that then goes to destruction.
Ranjan.
You could have bad results, which could happen because you made a mistake in business, and we all make mistakes in business at some point of time. Your timing could be wrong, but as she said, Nisha said, one of the ideas was the ego issue, and you need to focus on that. But you find lots of business getting bust because of the environment.
Sure. Siddharth?
You know, not to sound clinical about it, but if you look at the entertainment business, some businesses are built on the cult of personality. Right? Some of them lend themselves to you build brands based on personalities.
Right.
That feeds into the overall values of the brand. And those brands stand for the person who's inextricably linked to the brand.
Perfect.
And then you just move forward and you keep building value there. Now, you're putting yourself in a position where you are vulnerable to a certain extent, because then it really boils down to the person who's being identified as the person driving that entire brand, and that brand becomes hollow without the person. On the flip side, you're being able to personify something in a much better way than a cold brand name would have helped you to do.
Any of you gentlemen, I mean, Vedesh, you know, what do you make out of it?
I'm at a manage more than 8 to 9 big brands on a regional basis and also in India. So you got to remember, every brand has a very defined character and a value. Now, sometimes we build it deliberately. Some it comes in over a period of time, it acquires a character and a value, right? And we call it the brand footprint. Now, what happens is, at some point of time, some of the brands, due to situation, the brand imagery get damaged, but not necessarily you lose the brand dramatically. Due to certain conditions, the brand get damaged, you repair it and come back. There are a lot of examples where the brand got tarnished and come back. Now the question is that if whomsoever is the marketeer of this brand, who's nourishing this brand, if they don't do a good job of bringing it back and bring it come alive, I think this brand will suffer. As an example, I would give with the Nike. I remember having had a chance to meet Phil Knight way back in 1996 in one of the Innovation Congress. He specifically mentioned about the fact he got Tiger Woods to support this brand when Tiger Woods was very early in his life.
Yep.
And he betted on him. He said, I paid $45 million to bet on him to convert the game of golf from an old man game to a young man game. He transformed using the brand. And used the words, and how did you do it? I said, just do it, right? So he said the whole concept of just do it. But the fact is, when Tiger Woods got into trouble at later part of time, did it affect the brand name of Nike? Absolutely, it did have an impact, but the way in which they rescued the brand by delinking Tiger Woods from that and getting few other personalities who match with Nike they brought in. So what somebody is going to do with the brand is what we are all going to watch.
Gautam, last, any famous last words?
Basically, what one is talking about is ego, and which is perhaps the most difficult thing for somebody who is in business, somebody who's developed, somebody who's built something, to realize when he should separate his personality and ego from the business, treat the business dispassionately, and allow it to, if it needs to be exit, if it needs to be closed down, close it down, if it can be revived, revive it, but do it in time.
Thank you, panel. Awesome stuff.
Thanks very much.
We hope you enjoyed our coverage of the Economic Times Inspiring Business Leaders of India 2016. Signing off, I'm Pooja Jain.